Mike Johnson faces quite the uphill battle if he expects to get reelected to Speaker of the House, as MAGA is quite the chaotic party that doesn't really know how to govern effectively. So it's up in air as if this will be an easy time or if it'll more so resemble his initial election that took multiple days and a lot of backdoor concessions. And a CNN panel, I think, breaks this down pretty well. So I want to watch these clips and jump back in with the context needed.
There are about 14 lawmakers who want commitments from him or undecided. Uh, the magic number for him is 2. That's how much he can lose. And one of those 2, one of those 14, I should say, is a hell no. Okay, so this is not looking great at the moment.
Well, and anyone who's worked with Congressman Thomas Massie knows that when he makes up his mind about something, it doesn't change. It never does. So, like, he is a hard no. That's, the facts here. But there really is, I believe, a path forward for Speaker Johnson. He's relatively young when it comes to being a speaker. He's learned a lot. I think he's probably learned a great deal after that last spending fight. And the real person I have my eye on right now is Chip Roy.
And that's what it comes down to, essentially. There is this other long shot possibility of, I think, 5 or more Republicans defect, then Democrats would have the votes necessary, and ultimately it would be Hakeem Jeffries who becomes the Speaker of the House. Now, to be fair, there's probably not 5 Republicans who will defect, but 2, 3 is very much possible. And you still have Congress members who are like Republicans of old, who are true conservatives, who aren't going to just sell out for power. They're not willing to hand the levers of Congress over to Trump's radical agenda just because it means that they're winning, right? Especially after his insurrection attempt on his way out last time. So it comes down to, and this will be telling for the Trump presidency, I believe, whether or not this wing of Republicans will hold true, or if they're going to fold to pressure from outside primary threats or just being ostracized from the party.
That Mike Johnson is being optimistic here. I mean, it might be the case that inevitably it is Mike Johnson, but it could be painful getting there.
I think it's going to be incredibly painful. And I think it's just the beginning of a very painful 2 years for whoever is going to be Speaker on the Republican side. This is just going to be the first vote in which their margin is tiny. And every single member of Congress, every single member of that Republican caucus is going to be able to play whatever leverage they want. They're going to be able to ruin Mike Johnson's day any day they want. So even if he ends up being Speaker, which is not a job I would wish on my worst enemy in this particular Congress, it's not going to be a good time.
Yeah, I don't think this alone will be the straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back, so to speak, but it will be the first screw knocked loose in a larger machine, or I guess at this point, like the 3rd or 4th screw, right? As we've seen riffs from like some Trump appointments over H-1B visas, like these things dividing the party, where Republicans' biggest enemy is themselves. They are largely ineffective at governing, and anytime they are in the majority, this becomes realized, and it's probably frustrating for those in power. And now they have to try to do this and thread the needle with an ultra thin majority, with their own party divides between the tech bros and the politicians in rural areas who have to at least pretend to care about workers. And this is what got them last time. This is why Trump was so legislatively ineffective last time, but he was able to convince his base that it was like not this. But now like his base are catching on that it's the tech bros calling the shots, but like the ones who have to appeal to the workers can't just let that happen. So that's causing this rift, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for Trump to sell this lie, right? Because how are you not an elite who's backing the elites when you're 180ing positions to agree with Elon on things like H-1B visa, which takes immigrants over for lower pay to steal jobs from Americans, right? Allowing Elon to take the reins and use the government to try and become the first trillionaire, and then coming behind him and appointing 13 other billionaires while you're at it. I mean, including family members at that.
Donald Trump wants his victory certified on January 6th, and he doesn't want anything to get in the way of that. And the House can't certify an election if they don't have a speaker. They can't do anything.
I understand that, but they have people who are definitely against Speaker Johnson. So how do you assume that you think that Trump has enough influence to make sure that we get it done?
I think there's a lot of posturing. I think Massie will vote against Johnson, maybe one others.
Well, it can't be one other.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if there are 2, he loses, and there will be another ballot.
Then it'll just be Massie.
Just now, the great Manu Raju on Capitol Hill is reporting that Mike Johnson is trying to push back on the idea that there will be all these side deals. A source in the leadership office says he is not inclined to negotiate or make backroom side deals, which again, I have to take people back to the McCarthy fight.
The McCarthy fight, where, by the way, Johnson spent days making backroom deals. I mean, it's clear what he's going to try and do. Let's be for real. He wants to remain in the position, and it just comes down to how much Republicans who don't want him or the Trump agenda will bend the knee to Trump now that, I mean, largely they don't have to, right? And you already see this with them listening to Elon on the spending bill before Trump ever even chimed in. They're ready to just move on from this, where they rode Trump's coattails to victory, but now it's not like he's going to get elected again. So how much do they really need to play ball on the things they hardline don't agree on? And it's the same for those around Trump who used him to get these cabinet positions, spent their money to influence the election more so, now we're with Elon Musk, who wants to be the first trillionaire. But now they're largely just going to carry out their own agenda while Trump is the pawn, and he's going to have to go with this while trying to still appear powerful for his own ego. I mean, he completed the mission of being the pawn that gets people to vote in all of these deep state elites to rebuild the establishment that had been weakened, right? That had been greatly weakened. But now it's rebuilt with 13 billionaires, the richest man in the world controlling regulations, Vivek helping with that. And it's successfully done. So it's not like they need to heed Trump's warning anymore. It's like, we got you, buddy. You did what we need you to. It's just those like who really bought into the cult don't realize this yet, or kind of are starting to realize it, but really don't want to admit it to themselves.